Leo sat in the dimly lit control room, his fingers idly tapping on the desk. The hum of machinery around him was a constant presence, a reminder that he was on a highly secure facility stationed on the barren moon of Jaika Prime. As a technician, his job was simple: monitor systems, perform routine maintenance, and ensure the security of the base. But lately, something felt off. The facility was too quiet. It had been weeks since any major activity had occurred, and Leo found himself growing restless. The Jaika people, an advanced alien race, were known for their vast intelligence and power. They controlled much of the galaxy's politics and trade. The base where Leo worked was part of their military-industrial complex, and while Leo's job wasn't glamorous, it provided him with a steady paycheck. The Jaika didn't expect much from humans. They saw them as little more than technicians, workers, and caretakers. Leo didn't mind the hierarchy, though. He preferred to stay out of their way. Still, today was different. He was staring at the data on his screen when a soft, muffled sound echoed through the walls of the facility. At first, he thought it was just another malfunction. The base had its fair share of them. But the sound repeated, growing louder and more distinct. It sounded like someone was moving through the ventilation ducts. Curiosity got the better of him. He muted the sound of the machines and turned to the small, blinking camera feed that showed the interior of a seldom-used corridor. The camera's night vision revealed nothing unusual. But then, a slight shift in the shadows caught his attention. A figure cloaked in darkness slipped past the camera's view, moving with a fluidity that suggested it wasn't human. Leo's heart skipped a beat. Jaika guards rarely patrolled this part of the station, and even if they did, they would never move this stealthily. His mind raced. Was it an intruder? An escaped prisoner? Without thinking, Leo pulled up the schematic of the station on his terminal and began analyzing the layout. The figure had moved into the maintenance wing, an area that Leo knew well. He would be able to access it through the maintenance shafts. It wasn't an area regularly monitored by the guards, which meant that whoever was there had a purpose. And Leo felt an odd compulsion to find out what that purpose was. He grabbed a flashlight, flicked it on, and slipped out of the control room. The corridors were quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the air recyclers. Leo moved quickly, staying close to the walls and avoiding the security cameras. His heart pounded as he approached the maintenance shaft. The hatch was slightly ajar, a small sliver of light spilling from within. Leo hesitated for a moment, then pushed the hatch open and crept inside. The shaft was narrow, but Leo was accustomed to these tight spaces. He crawled along the metal tubes, using his flashlight to illuminate the dark corners of the shaft. As he reached the end of the tunnel, he saw a faint glow coming from a small vent. Peeking through, he could make out a figure standing in the shadows, seemingly waiting for something. It was a woman. She was tall, with smooth blue skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her features were sharp, but there was a calmness about her, an air of someone who had been through countless struggles. She wore a simple, dark outfit, a stark contrast to the Jaika military uniforms that Leo was accustomed to seeing. Her eyes, bright silver, glowed with a quiet intensity. She was unmistakably alien. Leo's breath caught in his throat. He had heard rumors of high-ranking Jaika prisoners, political figures who had been locked away by the council. But this woman, she didn't look like a prisoner. There was a certain dignity about her, a presence that suggested she was far more important than she appeared. He continued to watch as she stepped forward, pushing aside a small panel in the wall. She seemed to know exactly where to press, and the panel slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. In it, there was a small device, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. She carefully removed it and tucked it into her pocket. Leo's curiosity overwhelmed him, and he found himself making a decision. He had no idea who this woman was, but something in her calm demeanor intrigued him. He needed to help her. He crept closer, making sure his movements were silent. The woman hadn't noticed him yet, her focus entirely on the device in her hands. He reached the vent and, without thinking, pushed it open slightly. The creaking sound echoed in the still air, and the woman instantly turned her head, her sharp eyes locking onto Leo's. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, to Leo's surprise, the woman nodded slightly as if she had expected him all along. Her expression softened and she whispered, "I need your help." Leo was taken aback. He had no idea what was going on, but something in her voice, the way she spoke with quiet authority, made him trust her. "I'm not supposed to be here," she continued, her voice low but steady. "But I need to escape, and I can't do it alone." Leo hesitated, his mind racing. Helping her would put his life at risk. If anyone found out, he would be caught, punished, or worse. But there was a part of him, something deep inside, that felt compelled to act. This woman wasn't just a prisoner. She was someone important, someone who could change everything. "Why should I help you?" Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Because I'm the only chance this place has for change. I was once a part of the council, and they locked me away for speaking out against their tyranny. But if I can get out, I can bring down the system that's been controlling this planet. I need your help to escape, and then I'll show you what we can do together." Leo's heart raced. The council, the powerful leaders of the Jaika, it sounded insane. But something in her words stirred a fire inside him. He had always felt like a cog in a machine, stuck in a life of routine and monotony. But with her, he saw a way out, a chance for something bigger, something that could change everything. "I'll help you," Leo said, his voice firm. Her eyes brightened with a mix of gratitude and determination. "Good. We don't have much time. Follow me." They moved quickly through the ventilation system, avoiding the main security corridors. The woman seemed to know every nook and cranny of the station. She led Leo to a hidden docking bay where a small ship was waiting. It was old, but it looked well maintained, as if someone had taken great care to keep it in working condition. "I've already prepared the ship," she said, her voice calm and efficient. "We leave tonight." As they boarded the ship, Leo glanced back at the facility they had just escaped. He had no idea what was ahead, but he knew one thing. His life would never be the same again. As the ship soared through the cold expanse of space, Leo sat quietly in the cockpit, his hands gripping the armrests. The woman beside him, who had introduced herself as Naira, piloted the craft with expert precision. The stars outside flickered by, casting their pale light through the cockpit windows. The silence between them felt heavy, as if the vastness of space itself weighed on their shoulders. Leo couldn't shake the feeling that his life had changed forever. A few hours ago, he had been a simple technician, going through the motions of his daily routine. Now he was on a stolen ship, heading into the unknown, with an alien woman who had been a former counselor of the Jaika. He couldn't believe what was happening. Everything seemed surreal. Naira's calm, composed demeanor was both reassuring and intimidating. She was a woman of few words, but when she spoke, it was with authority. Leo couldn't help but wonder how someone like her, someone so dignified and powerful, had ended up a prisoner. He knew little about the politics of the Jaika, but from what he had overheard, their society was built on a complex system of control and secrecy. Naira had once been part of that system, but now she was a fugitive, and Leo had become an unwilling accomplice. As the ship continued its journey, Naira finally spoke, breaking the silence. "We'll need to lay low for a while," she said, her voice steady but tinged with a hint of concern. "The Jaika have eyes everywhere, and if they trace us, they'll stop at nothing to bring me back. I'll need to find a safe place to regroup." Leo nodded, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. He glanced at her, his curiosity getting the better of him. "How did you end up in that facility?" he asked, his voice quiet. Naira didn't immediately respond. Instead, she focused on the ship's controls, adjusting the trajectory as they passed through a dense asteroid field. The soft hum of the engines filled the silence as she carefully maneuvered the ship through the obstacles. "I was once a member of the Jaika Council," she finally said, her voice distant, as if recalling painful memories. "I wasn't always a prisoner. I was respected, powerful even. But I began to see the cracks in the system, the corruption, the way the council manipulated the people for their own gain." Leo listened intently, intrigued by her words. He had no idea that the Jaika government was so divided. From what he had heard, the council was an almost untouchable force, controlling the fate of countless worlds. The idea of someone within that system wanting to change it seemed impossible. "I tried to bring about change," Naira continued, her gaze focused on the stars ahead. "I spoke out against the way they treated the lower classes, the way they manipulated the laws to suit their needs. But the council didn't like that. They saw me as a threat to their power, so they locked me away, hidden from the public, and pretended I was nothing more than a disgraced politician." Leo shifted in his seat, feeling a pang of sympathy for her. It was hard to imagine someone so composed being cast aside so cruelly, but he also understood the power the council wielded. They were ruthless, and Naira's desire to change the system made her a target. "So, what happens now?" Leo asked. "What's your plan?" Naira's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at him. "I'm not sure yet. I've been on the run for years trying to stay ahead of their reach, but now I have an opportunity. There's a group of allies I've been in contact with, people who believe in the same cause. They've been waiting for me to make my move." She paused, her expression turning more serious. "The real challenge, Leo, is that the council controls everything. The military, the economy, the media, they have their fingers in every pie. It's going to take more than just hiding away. I need to take back the council piece by piece." Leo didn't fully understand what that meant, but he could see the determination in Naira's eyes. She wasn't just trying to survive. She was planning something much bigger. She was going to bring down the very system that had oppressed her people for so long. "We'll start by contacting my allies," she said, pulling up a holographic display from the ship's console. "I have a network of rebels, former military officers, and some sympathizers within the council who are willing to help. We'll need to act quickly before the council notices I'm gone." Leo wasn't sure what to expect, but the idea of being involved in something so monumental excited him. It was as if he had been pulled from his mundane life into a story much larger than himself. But even as he thought about it, he felt the weight of the risks they were taking. If they were caught, there would be no escape. The Jaika had resources that could track them across the galaxy, and once they found them, Leo had no doubt that their punishment would be severe. As Naira began making contact with her network, Leo couldn't help but notice how composed she was. She was a woman of action, always thinking ahead, always calculating. And yet, there was a vulnerability beneath her calm exterior, something Leo had glimpsed when she spoke of her past. He couldn't help but wonder how much pain she had endured to get to this point. Hours passed as the ship drifted through the cold reaches of space. Naira's communications with her allies were brief, but efficient. She spoke in a language that Leo didn't understand, a series of clicks and hums that seemed to convey volumes without a single word. Each time she finished a conversation, her face remained unreadable, but Leo could sense the tension in her. Finally, she turned to him, her expression more focused than ever. "I have a plan," she said. "We're going to land on a remote moon where my allies will meet us. From there, we'll start assembling a team. We'll need skilled fighters, engineers, and strategists, and we'll need to move quickly. The longer we wait, the more chances the council has to catch up with us." Leo nodded, his heart pounding. He didn't know exactly what he was getting himself into, but he trusted Naira. There was something about her, something that made him believe that this was the right path. He had always felt like he was meant for more than just maintaining equipment in a quiet, hidden facility. Now, he was about to be part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. As the ship approached the moon, Leo looked out the window at the dark, desolate landscape below. It was a stark contrast to the bustling cities he had known, but it felt like a place where anything was possible, a place where a new future could be forged. Naira's eyes met his once more, her gaze unwavering. "We can do this, Leo," she said. "Together, we can change everything." Leo didn't know how, but he believed her. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but with Naira leading the way, he was ready to face whatever came next. The moon was quiet, eerily so. Naira had been to places like this before, remote, forgotten corners of the galaxy. This moon, however, felt different. It wasn't just its silence, or the cold wind sweeping across its barren surface. It was the weight of what they were about to do. For Leo, it was a world he couldn't understand, and yet he knew that it was the next step in a journey that had already changed his life. The ship touched down on the cracked surface with a soft thud, its engines humming to a quiet halt. The planet was nothing more than a barren rock, its surface broken up by jagged cliffs and craters. The stars above were obscured by the black clouds, giving the whole place a haunting, foreboding atmosphere. Naira turned to Leo, her face resolute, though there was a quiet tension in her eyes. The plan was simple, yet its execution would be anything but. They were meeting with an old ally of Naira's, someone she trusted to help her rally support. From there, they would begin to form a team, each member contributing their unique skills to help them carry out their goal, to infiltrate and take control of the Jaika Council. It wasn't just about power, though. It was about justice, about putting an end to the corruption that had plagued the Jaika government for too long. "I'll go first," Naira said, her voice steady but low. "Stay behind me and stay alert. The council doesn't know where we are yet, but that won't last long." Leo nodded. He hadn't spoken much during their journey. His mind was still racing with questions about Naira, about her plan, and about his own place in all of this. He had gone from a simple technician in a forgotten part of the galaxy to a fugitive and co-conspirator in what could become one of the most significant political shifts in history. It was a lot to process, but his trust in Naira had only grown. She was calm, intelligent, and determined. Leo believed in her. Together, they exited the ship, stepping onto the uneven ground. The air was thin but breathable, and the temperature was cool enough to feel refreshing after the heat of the ship. In the distance, Leo saw the faint outline of a structure, simple but well-crafted, nestled against the base of a large cliff. The structure was small, perhaps a hideout or safe house, but Leo could tell from Naira's expression that it was important. As they approached the structure, a figure emerged from the shadows. The person was tall and lean, with a rugged look, as though they had spent their life hiding from the authorities. They wore a dark, weathered uniform, and their face was partially obscured by a hood. Naira's voice broke the silence as she spoke to the figure. "Is everything ready?" The figure nodded once, then lowered their hood, revealing a familiar face. It was a man, his features sharp and angular. His hair was cropped short, and his eyes, though weary, gleamed with intelligence. "This is Leo," Naira said, motioning to the young technician. "He's with me. He'll be helping us." The man studied Leo for a moment before nodding in acknowledgement. "I'm Krell. I've been waiting for you." Leo gave a small nod, still unsure of how to proceed. He wasn't used to meeting people like Krell, people who had been on the run for so long that they had become part of the shadows. But there was something about Krell that made Leo feel like he wasn't out of place. "The council is growing nervous," Krell said, his voice low. "We've intercepted some of their communications. They know that Naira's escape wasn't a random occurrence. They'll be hunting for her soon, and they won't stop until they find her. We need to move quickly if we want to succeed." Naira nodded, her expression steely. "We'll be ready. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm going to take back what's mine." Krell glanced at Leo. "Are you sure about this, Leo? Once you're in, there's no going back." Leo hesitated. It was the first time someone had asked him directly about his role in this. He hadn't really thought about what it meant to be involved. He had followed Naira because he believed in her, but now he realized he was in too deep to turn back. "I'm sure," Leo said, meeting Krell's gaze. "I'm in," Krell nodded. "Then we start tomorrow." The next day was a whirlwind of preparations. They worked in the shadows, setting up communication networks and gathering supplies. Naira's allies came and went, each one contributing their skills to the cause. Some were former members of the Jaika military, skilled in combat and strategy. Others were engineers, hackers, and tacticians. Together, they made a team that would be capable of carrying out the impossible. By the time night fell, they were ready. Naira, Krell, and Leo stood before a small, glowing device that projected a holographic map of the Jaika Council's headquarters. It was an imposing structure, a massive fortress floating high above the planet's surface. From the outside, it looked impregnable, its sleek, silver surface gleaming in the dark sky. "This is it," Naira said, pointing to the map. "This is where it all starts." The plan was simple. They would infiltrate the council's headquarters, posing as workers who had been assigned to perform routine maintenance. Using the cover of their identities, they would get access to the most secure areas of the building. From there, they would plant a virus in the council's communication systems, disabling their ability to communicate with the outside world. Once that was done, they would work quickly. Naira's goal was to gain access to the council chamber, the heart of the Jaika government. If she could get inside, she could use the ancient artifact, a mysterious object she had taken from the hidden vault during her escape, to gain control of the council. The artifact was rumored to have the power to override the council's authority and give its wielder complete control of the Jaika leadership. But there was one major obstacle: the council itself. The members were ruthless, intelligent, and paranoid. If they caught wind of Naira's plan, they would do whatever it took to stop her. That's why they had to act quickly and without hesitation. "We don't have much time," Naira said, her voice filled with resolve. "Once we're inside, there will be no turning back. We'll either succeed or we'll be caught." Leo nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it. This was the moment that would define everything. The next morning, they boarded a ship that would take them to the council's headquarters. The journey was short but tense. Naira remained calm as always, while Krell and Leo reviewed the final details of the plan. When they finally arrived, they found themselves standing before the massive structure. It towered above them, an imposing symbol of the power the Jaika held over the galaxy. But to Naira, it wasn't just a building, it was a cage, and she was about to break free. They passed through the heavily guarded security checkpoints, their forged identities convincing enough to get them through undetected. Leo's heart raced as they moved deeper into the heart of the council's headquarters. The halls were cold and sterile, the walls gleaming with polished metal. The air was thick with tension, but Naira walked with confidence, as if she had done this 1,000 times before. Once they reached the control room, Naira's team set to work. Engineers hacked into the mainframe, planting the virus in the council's communication system. Krell and Leo worked alongside them, ensuring that everything went according to plan. The final step was the hardest. Naira and Leo entered the council chamber, the most secure room in the building. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss, and they were alone. Naira stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the massive council table that sat at the center of the room. The members of the council were not present, Naira had ensured that, but the artifact was there, resting in a pedestal at the center of the table. With a deep breath, Naira approached the artifact. She raised her hand, her fingers brushing the smooth surface. As soon as she touched it, a pulse of energy surged through her body. The room seemed to vibrate with power. "It's time," Naira whispered, her voice filled with both determination and hope. The power she had long sought was finally within her grasp.